morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Jamal Fruster, Tucson chiropractor, coach, consultant for providers. As So Coffee, if this is your first time, welcome. As this is the space to get some resources, get charged up, and get caffeinated at the soul level, y'all. Super, super excited for this episode as I come from a background of being my biggest critic, of being my hardest judge, of really just being freaking hard on myself. And I was having some conversations with some chiropractic students this week. We just did providing for the provider not too long ago. And I did a talk at a hospital. And then I was also talking to some student leaders as well, too. And a reoccurring theme that kept coming up, was that people are their biggest critic and they're just so hard on themselves. And this can lead to an unsustainable expression and just not giving permission to allow one to be able to rest, to be able to recuperate, to be able to take that needs inventory, to be able to evaluate self, to be able to slow down, as it's always got to be go, 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 or just focusing on what's going wrong versus what's actually going right. And what I want to reflect to everybody, as it's been a journey for myself, and I'm not perfect, but this comes up in waves, but there's been a level of mastery, and I see this as a game to master, as when we can understand and when we can appreciate how it is that we can leverage and understand how this pattern even came about. As I don't know about y'all, but I come from being a space of being bullied when I was younger, being ostracized, not being Black enough for the Black folk, not being Latino enough for the Hispanics, couldn't speak Spanish. And it just led to a lot of just being in the middle, just floating and needing to find myself. And I was bullied a lot because I had an afro, and your boy kind of just stuck out. But, I really learned to develop a sharp tongue, and it led to me just dissecting people before, I would even say hello to anybody. So that way, just in case someone were to say something to hurt my feelings or to come at me, well, I'd be able to tear them apart. And the internal pattern of the external people bullying became an internal cycle due to me being so hard on myself. So that way, anyone that would say anything about me, well, I've already cut myself so deeply about it that you can't say shit, so I won't feel anything about it. So that way I was numb to whatever you're going to say, so that way I can just tear your ass apart. So when it comes to people being hard on themselves, like, yo, I get it. And it comes from ultimately, I think, a sympathetic defensive mechanism. And for us to step into a more sustainable, vagal, ventral, regulated parasympathetic space, I think it's so important for us to be able to start to unwind this. You with me? So first and foremost, acknowledgement is very important. So whether you're thinking about this, whether you're riding the car, just think about it. How did this pattern get here? What showed up in your neurology? What was the stimulus that you maladapted to over time that helped you get through what you needed to get through, but how's it getting stuck in your neurology? Where does this show up the most? Is it at work? Is it when you're parenting? Is it when you're showing up as a leader? Where is it that you're sensitive to that people need to slow down, or people might be coming at you? You need to start to prep yourself in this way, shape, or form. Where is it that you're showing that you are your biggest critic? Where are you defeating yourself? Where are you cutting yourself down? Where are you judging yourself? Because when we can start to identify where the areas, the spaces, the triggers, then we can now start to bring awareness into it. Have a big breath into the nose. Exhaling. Leverage your neurology to come back into a parasympathetic space, because in the parasympathetic, in the ventral vagal, that's where we can actually meet ourselves. That's where we can slow down. That's where we can pause. That's where we can appreciate. It's tough to come home when you can't recognize your own light. One thing that, as I got older, I was in high school, college, mainly high school, when I was younger too, my mom would always make sure the front light was on, the porch light was on. And I always remember jogging home or running home from my boy Tyler Estevez's house, or Harris Borowski, or Mikey Pentinato. Shout out to the OGs on Apple Tree Drive and Huckleberry, by the way. I was always able to be like, yeah, like, and it would invite like a sense of safety. It would invite a sense of welcoming. So, how is it that you need to recognize your own light? Is it writing down a list of your accomplishments? Is it simply acknowledging you for how well you're actually doing versus what you're not doing? Is it slowing down? Is it a combination? So, a question for you is, how is it that I need to recognize the light within myself? And have I? I know I didn't until I was about 23 when I got my shit kicked in at KTC level 1, as a lot of y'all have heard the story already. Said, I love you and I'm proud of you for the first time. Couldn't stop crying for 10 minutes. And one other strategy, that's when you can identify the pattern. Where does it come from? Start to create space and place in your life to implement your self-care routine. This comes from Deb Dana, Anchored, your self-care circles, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What are some things you can implement on the day-to-day, on the week-to-week, on the month-to-month? That makes it a part of a regimen, just as brushing your teeth. It's the same thing, y'all. You need to treat it with that much reverence and respect. Don't got no time for spiritual or emotional cavities out here. That's how things build up and accumulate in our nervous system. And when they build up and accumulate in our nervous system, well, then that leads us to stay in then a stressed or a dysregulated autonomic nervous system. So you gotta make sure you brush your teeth. You gotta make sure you brush your nervous system. You gotta make sure you slow down. You gotta make sure you effort to get back into ventral vagal, because it's all on a spectrum, by the way. Ventral vagal, that's home, that's parasympathetic. Then I'm moving my hand to the middle. If you're listening to this on a scale, that's where sympathetic is, fight or flight. And then on the other side of it is dorsal vagal. That's immobilization, that's shut down. Let's get numb. It's disassociation. I was really good at numbing myself. Really, really good. Because I was in fight or flight for so long. And even when I might have certain emotions or big triggers, I can sense myself starting to numb, so that way I can just fight without any regard for my health and those around me. That's an old pattern that I've put a lot of effort and time to be able to heal and make sure it doesn't, not repress, but once more integrate. And that's two of the last points I want to share with you. You know you're getting better when, one, you're not experiencing as intense of a trigger emotionally when someone does something resonant or similar to, and when you're able to implement and minimize the gap of implementation of what you actually want to do and how you want to show up in these strategies, such as going back to self-care, referencing your list, recognizing the light within you. And that's not some woo shit. That's just simply recognizing, what is it that I'm doing right? Dale Carnegie. Praise a man, praise a human, he'll move the world. And focus on that versus focusing on not doing what you don't want to do, or not doing what you want to do. Focus on what you do want to do. Cultivate your focus around that. And the last quick strategy for you is savor. Attend, appreciate, amplify. This comes from Deb Dana. I love her work already. It's so good. But savor. Attend to, meaning recognize. Recognize some really, really good things that are going on. Some ventral vagus, some good feelings. You picture something, whether it's during your day, you hear a bird, you feel a breeze, or whatever, maybe drink it in, baby. Appreciate. Set your focus to like, wow, I really appreciate that. Which I think brings us into gratitude. Like, wow, thank you that I get to experience that. And then savor. It's interesting as I slow down how fast I eat, which I used to eat really fast when I was growing up. And I was like, it's in front of me, it's in front of me, it's in front of me. But now I just find myself to be chewing my food more, savoring it more, and really sitting with it more. And that's really good for your digestion. But it's also good for your spiritual digestion. So attend, appreciate, amplify, or savor the ventral vagal impulses. Savor them. And as you savor them, it's easier for you to find your way home. And as you find your way home, you can loop back to being your biggest cheerleader versus your biggest critic. Life's hard enough already. You don't got to make it harder. Life's demanding enough already. You don't got to make it harder. You don't need to keep cutting yourself to advance in this life. It can be softer. It can be more ease filled. Because once more, that's from a sympathetic reflection and perception and lens. You potentially can go there, like David Goggins, he'll go there and he'll look for it. And I just want to make sure that you're utilizing it from a conscious and from an intentional lens that is rooted in ventral vagal, that is rooted in a parasympathetic sense, versus just getting lost in it and doing it from a non-conscious sense. Because once more, I think that's what will bring us back to and perpetuate and keep us from the places of hurt and pain, where we come from. No more. No more, baby. Your heart deserves to be open. It's been enough. There's been so much demand. You got this. If this has been valuable, shoot me a message, email me, hit me up on the DMs, whatever it may be. I'll put a poll. If you're on Spotify, there's polls to this, and I want to be able to collect more feedback, so do that. Share this with a friend. Like the podcast is only getting better and better, but it only reaches more and more providers when we're able to share. So if this resonates, share with a friend. I really appreciate y'all sharing all the things too. It's so good for my soul, and it gives me perception awareness and where we need to be able to focus in and dial in. So I love you and I'm proud of you. May you say that to yourself in this moment. May you have a great, 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 great rest of your day. Until next time, peace.